Today we're going to be talking about two X series pistols from Sig Sauer, the P320 AXG Scorpion and the P320 XFive Legion. Are you ready? Stand by. Okay.
They're the same picture.
Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel. I'm David and I'll be your guide in pursuit of practical pistol proficiency. So today we're going to be comparing the two high-end models from the P320 lineup, the P320 AXG Scorpion and the P320 XFive Legion. The P320 AXG Scorpion has a 4-inch barrel, weighs about 32-ish ounces, and is the carry module versus the TXG module, which has a full-length dust cover and is made out of a tungsten-infused polymer with about a 5-inch barrel. So the AXG is very much like a Commander-length 1911, while the XFive Legion is very much like the full-size GI model, if you were to put it in 1911 terms. The price point on these guns is comparable. Right now, if you can find them, the MAP price on the AXG is about $1,000, although routinely they're going for about $1,100 to $1,200 in the auction sites. Whereas the XFive Legion, if you can find one, is going for about $900, but is going for more than that on the auction sites because of the panic buying that's been going on in the fourth quarter of 2020. Now, both pistols feature the XFive trigger control group with the straight skeletonized trigger. The trigger weight on both of these guns is going to be a very mushy, about 3.5 pounds. So both of these are set up for competition shooting. Both of these are set up for kind of like range use, although this gun is not necessarily optimized for it quite as much as this one is. So we're gonna walk through this comparison in my typical comparison framework. But first, if you enjoy this kind of content at any point, please go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Support for these videos comes from the links in the description, specifically my Patreon, where $1 can get you access to 3 to 5 posts per week. And there's a bunch of links to stuff I find cool. And one of those is Big Daddy Unlimited. There's a link to join that in the profile. It's about $1 for your first month, and it's a buyer's club for Second Amendment stuff, and you get near wholesale prices, so that's a pretty good value. So with all that out of the way, let's dive in. Since the trigger control group on both of these guns is effectively the same, we're gonna leave out some of the stuff I normally talk about because they're the same. So we're gonna talk about the initial quality, the experience while shooting optics, experience while shooting irons, the overall shooting experience, the aftermarket, and then final thoughts. There are going to be time codes in the description so you can jump around to the stuff that interests you. So let's dive right in. Now, handling either one of these guns in the gun store, they're going to feel like quality guns that largely support their price point. The experience when they place the box on the counter is going to be much better out of the P320 Scorpion, which has a deluxe briefcase style case, whereas the P320 XFive Legion comes in your ho-hum gun caboodle with just a plastic clamshell and some egg crate foam. So the case on the XFive sucks, but when you actually pick them up and feel them, the controls are literally identical since they have the same chassis in them. The slide release is going to be the same, the trigger is going to be the same. The only difference is going to end up being the mag catch, which is going to be more like a 226 mag catch on the P320 AXG, whereas the XFive-L is going to have its competition oversized extended mag catch. But when you actually feel them and play with the slides and stuff like that, the fact that there is a metal frame on this gun, and the G10 grip panels, makes it feel like a higher end gun. Even though it's the same as the XFive, this one's just gonna feel like a nicer, higher end gun, despite the price being roughly similar. So the AXG Scorpion is going to score a point for perceived quality. Talking about the optics cuts, both of these guns are going to come with optics cuts. Now the XFive has had several different generational optics cut. They originally came just for the Delta Point Pro. The new ones are now coming with both the Delta Point Pro and the RMR screw hole patterns on them, so you can use either style of dot. However, in using an optic, you give up your rear sight. The whole rear sight comes off. The AXG, on the other hand, has a dovetail behind the optic cut so that you can actually put in co-witness irons if that's your game. So the AXG cut I tend to prefer because it has a little bit more flexibility. But beyond that, there's not a huge difference on how the plates are, except for you lose your rear sight on the XFive. So I'll give it to the AXG for the optic cut. Now for the irons is a different story. The irons on the AXG are the Sig X-ray night sights, which are decent night sights. However, the sights on the XFive are fantastic. The XFive is going to come with a target sight that's adjustable for both windage and elevation to get your impacts dialed in with whatever you want with a good fiber optic sight. And I believe it is a Dawson Precision front sight. So the sights on this gun are fantastic. Iron sights go to my man, the X5L, in a big way. Now, shooting is obviously going to be the most important thing, and that's where all these guns are going to make their money. The AXG Scorpion features a 4-inch barrel, and that is going to provide a gun that is very well balanced. And what that's going to mean is when the slide closes, it's less likely to want to kind of dip, whereas the XFive Legion has this big old fat heavy dust cover that wants to make the gun kind of flop down when the slide closes. So the XFive Legion is going to take a little bit more effort to stabilize the muzzle when the slide closes. However, because the tungsten infused grip module is so much heavier, when you're dialing in on mid to long range shots, the heavy frame of the gun is going to stabilize the sights faster than the lighter weight aluminum frame. So despite the balance being better on the Scorpion, the heavyweight frame is going to stabilize the sight picture faster on the XFive Legion. So it's kind of a give and take between the two, and based on what your preference is going to kind of dictate whether you want the balanced gun that feels good to run fast versus the heavy gun that is going to be easier to stabilize and take difficult shots with. Now, mechanical accuracy from both of these guns is basically the same, and if you're shooting them with optics on the guns, then you're going to get basically the same size group since sight radius no longer matters. With irons, you're going to do a better job with the XFive Legion due to the excellent target sights that it has on it. As far as gun handling is concerned, the XFive Legion, since it has a longer slide, has more real estate to manipulate the slide. The gun comes with an uncaptured guide rod and a couple different spring weights, so you can play with that. Generally, the spring weights are going to be lighter, so manipulations are going to be easier on the XFive Legion, whereas the AXG comes with a captured recoil spring and is basically going to be the same always. So if you make me pick between the two, I'm honestly going to call it a draw, guys. So if you are a competitor in USPSA and you know how to shoot acceptable sight pictures, meaning as soon as the sight is starting to return to what is acceptable to send another shot, then the Legion is probably going to have an advantage. So I'm going to give it an extra check mark in black to support its competition pedigree. Now, the reason I throw this in as a caveat is unless you're a USPSA shooter and are starting to get into the deep end of that pool, this is an advantage that you can't claim. It's not there for you. And the reason I say that is if you're taking aimed shots every time you pull the trigger, like a 0.5 split on aimed shots, either one of these guns is going to be identical. You're not going to get any advantage from the heavy gun that you aren't going to have from the lighter gun. When you start to go like 20 and sub 20 splits, this gun is going to be a little bit more stable, generally speaking, but if you're shooting that fast, it takes a skill set that, unless you're intentionally developing it, you may not have access to. So it's an advantage, but it's not going to be exploitable by a lot of the general population. So while the XFive Legion is probably better suited to high-speed marksmanship, a lot of the general population isn't going to be able to capitalize on the advantage that this big old heavy gun offers. So for the general crowd, it is a draw. Next, we're going to talk about the carry experience. And I'd love to tell you about the carry experience, but first I need to remind you of the sacred relationship between content creator and you, the subscriber. And if you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. I make world-class firearms content and you watch this content. And as you step on your children's Legos going across the playroom, and you're reminded of your love of Legos as you step on them coming out of your kids' room, and you decide to make my logo out of your children's Legos so that everyone in the house will know of the world-class firearms content here on the channel. If you're still with me this far, remember guys, I really appreciate the like and subscribe. So the carry experience, this is going to be a quick one, but I'm going to explain it. Yeah, it's going to be the AXG Scorpion. This is roughly going to carry like a Glock 19 sized pistol, despite having 17 rounds on tap due to the very high bore axis on the P320 series. The magazine comes way up into the gun, so those extra 2 rounds basically disappear The gun is kind of taller than a Glock 19, but not a whole lot. But neither one of these guns I'd necessarily recommend carrying because they have 3.5 pound triggers with no trigger blade safety. If you're somebody who carries like appendix and you've done any sort of holstering under duress in like training classes or anything like that, there's nothing to secure the triggers. Both of these guns, if they were going to be for carry, would benefit from having like a manual safety because the trigger is light enough to kind of command one and the trigger throw is short enough that it kind of needs to be there. So while the XFive Legion is going to be a little bit better if you can do high-speed marksmanship, that style of marksmanship isn't necessarily used in the self-defense world because you're just confirming where each hole goes. You're not actively guiding it when you shoot at that speed. So this gun is going to be a lot more practical. It's going to be a little more wieldy. It's not got a 5-inch muzzle hanging down the front of your pants. It just generally is going to be a better carry experience. So the AXG Scorpion is definitely getting the check mark in this category. So as far as the aftermarket is concerned, in the fourth quarter of 2020, everybody makes something for the P320 XFive. It is one of the most, if not the most popular gun in US PSA, that there is just a whole plethora of stuff for this pistol. Like whatever you want for this thing, they probably make it for it. That all said, the AXG is the benefactor of the P320 series being so successful because there's a bunch of stuff that fit on this too. It's just that the mag catch that comes on these, since this is the first type of gun in this lineup with this frame, is not going to work from all of the other P320s. So I'm going to give the nod in the aftermarket to the XFive. So if you made me pick one and I didn't have the specific use of a competition pistol and I just needed kind of an all-purpose sort of range gun, one that's fun to look at, fun to shoot, is going to be easy to carry from time to time, maybe it's used in home defense, all that kind of stuff, I'm going to pick the AXG just for that purpose. If you made me pick the gaming version, then yeah, I'm going to pick the P320. It's tough to say which one's which, so I throw both of those at you depending on what your specific use is, where you can make the decision that you want. But I think that the AXG is better for flexing on Instagram. It's just a better general purpose gun, whereas the XFive Legion is very much a purpose-built thoroughbred that is intended for racing. So both guns are awesome. You're not going to go wrong with either one. And I appreciate my buddy John letting me borrow his P320 Legion to make this video for you guys. So I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, guys.